Hello guys, it's your favorite engineer, and today I'll be unboxing two cheapest motherboards from Aliexpress. First one is Mughal H61M. Let me magnify a bit. Yes, so this one cost me around, I think, 20 bucks, something like this. This is specifically for generation 2 and 3 of Intel processors based on LGA 1155. So this is the cheapest. You can, put the Xeon 1230 version 1 and version 2 here. And the second motherboard is I think this is for the generation 4 of the Intel Core, and this is a motherboard that has LGA socket 1150. So this is both boards are for the DDR3, and now now we can unbox it. So let's start from the cheapest one. Yeah, one more. This one cost me, I think it was 30 bucks, around 30 bucks. Yes. So let's start from the cheapest. Let's see what's inside and how the board looks like. I'm interested what is inside. There were some people telling that sometimes they put, yes, here is the Mughal H61. Sometimes they put the chip H61 and sometimes something with 77. So let's see what I got. Oops. The first motherboard. Okay, so we have this one here, a cable, and I'm lucky because I got the better board. So this one, I think it's with the chipset 77. So yes, it tells you that it is let me magnify. This one has an information that this is X7VB, so whatever it means. So the board itself comes without the battery, so you need some battery here. For this I have a CR2025, or it can be CR2032 battery. You need to put it here. They send it without this battery. So the board is very small. It's very small really. So it's packed with the SATA ports, 2 DIMM slots, the DDR3, and I think this one can have also USB 3, but I see only USB 2 here. So 6 USB 2, HDMI, VGA, and yes, this is something that should allow me to put here M2 disk, so NVMe here. We have a fan connector for the CPU and a fan for the case, but the fan for the case, it's actually only 3 pins, so you do not have PWM, so it's without PWM. So this one I will use to put Xeon 1230 version 2, and it should work. So far so good. We'll see later on if it works and how the BIOS looks like. And now, yeah, one more thing. We can see there are some jumpers. I probably need to read this one. So let me magnify it so you could see what is there. Oops, it's not getting. Yes. So this is something that explains how to do, how to switch, but I'm not sure how to do it. So there is no instruction, nothing. You are on your own, no instruction at all. You only get the board and without the battery, a cable, And that's all. Okay, that was the first board, so that was Mughal H61M. Okay, I'm installing Xeon E3 1230 version 2, as you can see. I will be using also 16 gigabytes of memory, this Kingston 2x8, and I think I will use this kind of stock cooler, Intel 1155 and others, and we'll see if it's gonna start or not. As you can see, it is working, but the point is that this CPU fan connector, even though it is 4-pin, it seems like the BIOS and the motherboard cannot adjust the fan speed, so that's the issue. I connected it to this power source, which is only 350 watts, but it's sufficient for this board. On board there's a Xeon, as you could see, and in a moment I will show you what is in the BIOS, what are the options. This is my test setup for the Mughal H61M motherboard, so I'm using these kind of parts here. As you can see, it has a Windows 10 installed, as you saw probably, and I'm using a stock Intel cooler, also some old GeForce NVIDIA GT 1030, and 16 gigs of RAM and the Xeon 1230 version 2 as a CPU. This is the BIOS of the Mughal H61M, and let's have a tour through the BIOS options so you could see what is available there. First thing is that there were many questions on the Aliexpress if it is working with the Xeon E3 12 something. So in my case it is working pretty well. As you can see, CPU E3 1230 version 2, Ivy bridge 4 cores detected. Let's go through all the options. So in advanced PCI subsystem settings. Then ACPI settings. Then TPM module, which is not available, but I think there's a slot to connect one. CPU config. SATA config. I have 2 disks connected. One is SSD and the second one is ordinary HDD, as you could see, 250 gigs and 120. USB config. This H61M supports only 2.0. I mean, they are on the panel, but it probably has some chip built in to support 3.0, but it is not connected, I think, on the front panel. Onboard device Realtek gigabit detected without any issue on the Windows 10. This is something I don't know. It supports NVMe, but it is not connected. There's a slot on the motherboard to connect one. It appears as a, I think it is somehow detected as a SATA disk. These are C states for the CPU. And let's go further. We have this PCIO config, system agent. Chipset options, not so much here, but let's see. What do we have? PCI Express. You can configure some options on every port. USB config. This is probably audio codec. BIOS security. Some other things. System agent. Virtualization enabled. graphic configuration, so you can prefer and you can enable rebar probably here. It's available on this board, so rebar is available. So full of options for the PCI Express bridge and memory. It just gives you information about what has been connected to the motherboard. And let's go to the boot options. So this is simple boot option, quiet boot, fast boot, new boot, and so on. I think they ported all the things they could, but the point is that there is no option to control the fan speed on this BIOS. So the BIOS is running at the full speed for the moment and you do not have any control. That's the drawback of this motherboard. You would need some additional circuit board that supports a PWM fan control if you want to use this board. But apart of this, everything is quite well. Everything works quite well. So let me start this and you will see how the Windows will work. Let's see what the Windows is showing up, if there's everything with the drivers and so on. So let's start from this part. If it discovered all the stuff on this Mughal H61M. I'm going to the device manager. Yes, as you can see, everything is fine. Everything has been discovered, nothing left. Everything is working well. No unknown devices. Let's see what the CPU Z shows, if I have one. No, I do not have one, but yeah, I do have CPU. I have a hardware monitor to show you. Okay, so it says the motherboard is H61, so no Mougol, but the motherboard is named H61 with the Intel. And discovered Xeon and all the disks. And one more thing, it is not showing, as you probably noticed, it is not showing the fan speed. So let me browse through all the sensors to show you. No fan speed sensing on this motherboard. No fan control. So that's the disadvantage. So if you go with this Mughal H61M, you will have to use some additional extended external fan control unit. Okay, so this is a drawback. So if do you want to know if I would recommend this board? Yes, I would, but you would need to spend some extra money to control the fan speed, because for the moment it is running at full speed and is very noisy. Okay, that would be all for this Mougol motherboard. So it works quite well with the Windows 10, with the 16 gigs of RAM, with the Xeon. Everything is fine, so you can use it, but remember about the fan. There's no fan control on this motherboard, even though there's a 6-pin PWM connector. It does not work. Okay, it just provides steady 12 volts. Now let's check the other one. So this one is H81M for the revision 4 of the Intel Core processor. Let's unpack it. Yes, this is a blue one. So this is a different company. It's named Soyo, whatever it means. And now let's see what's inside. You do not really know if it has been unpacked before or not. So there's a warranty card, all in China. Yeah, no, there's some English here. Okay, and we see this board. Here you do not have any kind of SATA cabling, nothing. This one should be suitable for the 4th generation of the Intel processors. This one hasn't been opened because we see there's a sticker. Let's open it. And yeah, these are a bit bigger. I think it's micro ITX. It's micro ITX, so let me show you. Still we have those jumpers. I don't know what they are for, so I probably need to read this. Let me magnify. There's some information that you can switch something, but I don't know what. So I would probably have to use some magnifying magnifying glass. Okay, we have what else do we have? We have 1, 2, 3 VRMs and the 4th one. There's a blank here, and we have this NVMe slot, full sized. Of course, there's no battery. You have to put the battery here, so it comes without the battery. We need to have this one. And we also have additional PCI Express, small one. And this board comes with the 4 SATA ports, USB 3 connector, 2 DIMMs. On this board we can see that we have full PWM as well for the CPU, as well for the case fan. Okay, so let's see what's about the ports. What do we have here? On this board we can see that we have USB 3, 2 ports, only 4 USB 2. We have DVI and we have VGA and HDMI, so full set of ports. And the Ethernet, 1 gig Ethernet, and audio of course. Okay, so what is else on this board? Yeah, I'm not sure about the quality. Basically, it looks quite well. I mean, I would compare it to some kind of ASRock boards, maybe something like this. It's not bad. It seems to be quite decent, I think. Let me see on the other side. See, everything is in place. I think it's a decent build. Yeah, we'll see later on. So on this board I will put something like i5 4570, or maybe I will put also Xeon. I mean, I'm thinking about putting here E3 1230 version 3. So we'll see that later on. But this board seems to be better, especially that it has USB 3 and another PCI Express port and plenty of USBs, and even the PWMs are better. I mean, it has a PWM for the fun. Okay, so that's for now, and later on we'll see how it works.
And the second motherboard is Soyo H81M V3H M2. This motherboard costs around 25 bucks, and it supports generation 4 of Intel processors. So we start the BIOS tour from the options in mine section, so you can see how the board is named, what is the BIOS version. The system language is only English, so you cannot choose another one. Let's go to the advanced options. So we start from cold wake up. It means whether the machine boots after power loss or not. PCI settings. We have PCI settings, but I cannot see any option to enable resizable bar. So this is not available. As you can see, no options for resizable bar. Not at all. This is missing. ACPI, hibernation and other stuff. Nothing interesting. CPU config. As you can see, this board now works with the Xeon E3-1230 version 2, so the 4th generation of the Intel processors. We have plenty of options regarding the CPU usage, so we have this one, hyper-threading enabled, virtualization enabled. You can enable performance mode, so these are the options that are available. Turbo mode enabled, energy performance. There are some profiles that you can choose from. CPU power limits. I don't know if it's applicable for this server. I presume not. You can probably under voltage over here, but I'm not an expert on it. SATA configuration. So it claims that we have, I think, 6 SATA ports, but I can see 4. I think one of them is taken by the M2 slot. So this board has one M2 slot, as I can see. You can put NVMe disk here. Let me browse to these options. Okay, there are some options for RAID, but I don't know if it's available here. So you can use Intel RAID right there. It's enabled. I don't know how to use it. Probably it's supported, but I don't know. Okay, let's go further. USB. This board has USB 3 ports. At least 2 I can see, and it has a front USB 3 connector. So it is supporting USB 3. And this is the chip that serves a serial port, but not only this, it also can play with the fan speed. As you can see, it detects 2 temperatures. It's one on the motherboard and second on the main board. But I think this system temperature it only shows plus 20, but I don't know if it's real because it looks like it has been locked, so it does not flicker at all. So in the CPU smart fan, there is only an option to set a start temperature and the slope setting. So it will be like a line. It's not that you can define in details. You just set the start and stop temperature and how much it will increase along with the temperature increase. You can set separately 2 smart fans, one for the motherboard, second for the CPU. At least we can see that it detects the speed properly. This is a text information about the chipset, but it doesn't have any, so it should have H81 chipset. I will show you later on. I will start these boards with Linux. Network stack, NVMe. I do not have anyone connected to this, so Ethernet port. Now we have the chipset, and what do we have here? So this is the PCI Express config. So no possibility to enable resizable bar. USB. Azalea, I think it is a audio codec or something. BIOS security, you can lock some options, probably by password. Onboard LAN, enable disabled, nothing fancy. Restore AC after power loss, you can choose if the board will start or remain switched off after power loss. System agent, I don't know what it is for. Oh yeah, we have graphic configuration, so you can only select internal CPU graphics or remote one on the PCI Express memory. Here you can play with the memory settings, and we will go through these options. So you can select XMP, so it supports XMP. Actually, my DDR3 sticks do not have one XMP. You can select the frequency right there. ECC enabled, but this board doesn't have I think the slot does not support ECC. I didn't try to put one in it. These are the options that you can choose from. You can enable, disable DIMMs if you are having some problems and you want to test something, you can disable it. GDXC, I don't know what is it. Okay, system power management. It's just you can set up a automatic start from the real-time clock. Boot, some simple options: quiet boot, fast boot, and see compatibility module. You can select to boot from UEFI or legacy. Nothing special. And the security, you can set up a password to access the BIOS, only the BIOS, so you can't set up a password or encryption on the disk. And that's all for this board. This is now the motherboard Soyo H81M V3H version M2 with this Xeon 1230 version 3 running Linux Mint 20.1, I believe. And let's now see what has been discovered by the OS from this hardware. Okay, you can see this is the controller, the chipset. Chipset is B85, so the one that is in the name of this board, I think. Yes, I'm having this graphics connected, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Let's see what is with the USB, if it's USB 3 or not. Yes, we can see there are a couple of USB 3 ports, so these two seem to be USB 3. So this is supporting USB, really, USB 3. Let's see some startup messages. Sound card detected, so it supports Linux supports this audio chipset. This is ELC HH2. No ECC support and so on. Basically everything has been discovered properly. I only have USB disk connected, so nothing more. So all has been discovered. This is the Ethernet chipset also correctly discovered and working, so everything is fine. So I think Windows should work fine on this board without any issues. Let's see my CPU. This is the CPU I'm having with all the details. 8 virtual cores for physical with all these functions available. Memory 16 gigs in 2 sticks. and that's all.
The third motherboard I'm trying is something that should support Xeon E5 2776 version 3 with the DDR3. So let's now unbox it. This comes as a pack. The motherboard is Soyo 1985. It should be X99 motherboard, so we get this plate, this cable. This is a CPU fan mounting, and we get the screws, and here is the motherboard. I'm going to build a server from this. We have we get a CPU, so let's focus a bit on this. And this board has 4 DDR3 slots, one PCI Express 16 lines. It lacks the battery, so you need to put the battery. 3 SATA connectors. These are supposed to be USB 3.0, but it seems that they are something like USB 2. And the M2 slot, which I think it collides with the capacitors, so I don't know if I can use it. No, this is the one, so it goes this way. But I think it is, you know, it is colliding with the battery bucket, so it seems to be problematic. Okay, let's now build a server of these parts. I put Soyo X99E together with the Xeon E5 2676 into this small case, so we can see it right here. So here we have the memory sticks. Here we have NVIDIA GT 1650, and it all fits within such small case. I will show you how it performs in a moment. So this, yes, I also had to add additional fan case, because, you know, this one can get really hot. It is TDP is 120, so it's better to be like this. The power source is 700 watts.
And now we have a Soyo X99E motherboard, and let's have a tour through all the options in the BIOS, something that more likely you wanted to see. So first page we have information about what's in the PC, 32 gigs of memory and so on, nothing interesting. Let's go to advanced options. On the top we have a TPM option, but the TPM is not installed, so there is a slot on pins on the motherboard, probably, that you can connect ACPI. And this is the chip for serial communication, so I'm not using it. I also saw that there are some pins, but probably nothing is soldered to it. Hardware monitor, it shows the temperature, so this motherboard can detect the speed of the fan and the temperature, and the fan speed is really working for me, at least for this system. For the CPU as well, but you can see it is sometimes showing some bad information about the RPM. Probably my fan is not perfect. Smart fan function, so apart that there's no graphical configuration, but you can set everything by hand on this text options. So I set it and it works, so I can confirm that it is working for me. Remember that on the Mughal H61M there was no such option, and the motherboard could not read the temperature. Serial port redirection. So this is basically a server kind of option. So it is something like you can redirect the serial port from Linux to the console. So this is something that is from the BIOS, from the servers, from the real servers. So they ported a server kind of BIOS. You will probably not use it at all. This is information of the gigabit internet on the board, on the motherboard, and we have the PCI. So here probably you can switch on the rebar. So you can see this option. This is rebar, resizable bar support. So this is available on this motherboard. These are settings for the PCI bus. Now the network stack, so you can enable Wake on LAN if you wish. CSM compatibility support module, so I don't know what is used for, probably server remains. If I go here, these are the options. NVMe, I do not have any installed, so this is SSD SATA for me. USB config. This motherboard does not support USB 3.0 as well. This is because this chipset that is built in on this motherboard is HM55. It's a very old one. So this has only USB 2.0 support. And now the processor configuration. So as you can see, I have Xeon 2676 version 3 that works with the DDR3 memory. We can see what are the options available. Virtualization is on. I'm using it for some reason. A lot of options for the CPU. And now advanced power management. You can set C states for the CPU if you wish to conserve some power. Let's see what do we have here in the socket configuration. So basically, for me, it looks like a server kind of BIOS that has been uploaded to this motherboard. I don't know if all the options work, but yes, it seems that there's a lot of functions that you can use. NOMA. Yes, this is server. So if you have a motherboard for two CPUs, probably these options will give you possibility to do some tricks on two CPUs. QPI. Everything you can set. Memory. So in the memory, I have DDR3. You can set up the voltage level. I don't know if it works. I didn't check. Let's go through all the options that we have. Probably you can, at least overclock a bit. All are unlocked. All the options are unlocked. This is good. See, these are my memory sticks. These are ECC, so registered RAM. It should show some temperature here, I believe, but I do not see anything. You can set some options here. So server BIOS. Yes, some PCI Express options. You can set everything. Almost all the options can be used. They unlocked everything. This is SRIOV. You can also enable it, but I'm not sure that this chipset supports, I mean HM55, if it does support this option. So probably not. So you are limited somehow by the chipset that is used on this motherboard. But when looking at the BIOS, everything is possible. Okay, security, you can set up a password for your disk or for the BIOS. As you can see, it is not enabled on my SSD, and that's all. And then we have boot options, so you can set a boot order, and that's all basically for this BIOS. Okay, as you can see, I installed Windows 10 on this motherboard Soyo X99E. The Windows detects the CPU properly. We can see it here, so that's the one. It has 12 physical cores and 24 virtual cores. I'm also using 32 DDR3 memory registered, the one from server. And if you go to the CPU Z, you can see all the details. And the CPU is okay, but the motherboard, it has a fake name, that's one thing. And the second thing, which is problematic, it is using very old chipset HM55, probably taken from some old laptop or so whatsoever. And this is kind of strange, and it may cause some issues in Windows 10 because this chipset, it doesn't have a native driver in Windows 10. And if you go to device manager, let me show you, you can see there's plenty of not recognized devices. However, the system itself works and it doesn't have any problem, but you will have to spend some time to patching these to find the drivers, correct drivers. Other thing is that this board, it has a full speed control of the fans, so you can set up fan curve in the BIOS for both system fan and CPU fan. It works pretty well. What else? I'm having these two sticks and they work quite well. I will be using this motherboard with Linux not to get any problem. If we go to the memory part tab, you can see that it supports DDR4 according to the CPU-Z, but we are using DDR3 sticks here. So that's the one and the second one, and they work quite well. Okay, let's continue. Okay, at the end I got rid of Windows 10 for this machine with the Soyo X99E and E5 2676 V3 with the 32 gigs of RAM, and I put the Linux on it. I put Ubuntu 24.04. So let me show you what is here. So now we can see that we have these 24 cores, 32 gigs of memory. So it's a lot, so you can make a good use of it under Linux. But I wanted to show you what basically is in this motherboard. So with the Linux it's easy. You can see that everything that has been discovered is this one. So the chipset basically is HM55, so it's kind of old one. This is what Linux shows about this. These are drivers that it loads. So everything works well here. So if I do like this, you can see that USBs are only 2.0. So the speed is only 480 megs on the USB port. So this is not USB 3, it's USB 2 for sure. Let me show you what the memory do I have. The memory I'm having is this one. So it doesn't show you, but it is ECC enabled. And what I did with this server, I put Ollama on it. With these models, I'm using NVIDIA proprietary drivers, and it is working quite well. I'm having Dockers, running Open Web UI, as you can see. And let me show you how it works. So on this window, I will put NVIDIA SMI. This will be showing what graphics I have and what is the load, the current load. And on the second terminal, I will put the same, but for the Ollama. So Ollama engine is in there. Once I run it and access through the web browser, I will be able to use this AI, this localhost IP. Yes, that was the wrong one. Let me switch to English. If it's possible. Okay, I will not be now searching it, but let me put some chat. Let's select Gemini, so Gemma. Let me search over the internet. Show me the weather for Warsaw, Poland for the next 7 days. And let's start. So Ollama should start to work. It is running even though the model does not fit in the GPU memory, it is fully consumed, almost fully consumed. It will offload something into the CPU and GPU. That is why I need so much cores, 24 cores, and the memory. It is now been searching the network. Let's see what will be the outcome. See, even with this old graphic card, you can make a use of this under the AI. Now we have output. See, so that is why it is worth investing in such an old chipset and such an old CPU, Chinese motherboard. So even with this, you can build a quite powerful server for the AI purpose or for the other stuff like launching virtual machines and Kubernetes and so on, whatever you want to try. So I would recommend to use this hardware because it's cheap and it will give you a lot of fun. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.